Hey everyone, Gage here with Pickleball Effect, and today I'm coming at you with the new Radius by Joola. So this is actually their most recently released paddle. It came out a month or two after the rest of their paddles, and it has a couple interesting features that make it a little bit different than the rest of their paddles. So as you can see, it's pretty circular, almost looks like a ping pong paddle. I'm not sure if Joola was really going for that approach, but I personally think it looks really cool. The handle here is 5 inches long, so not super long, but at the same time, I can still fit a second hand on there if I want to do a two-handed backhand. So I think it'll be a fairly good size handle for most people. The length of the paddle is 15.8 inches, so not the shortest paddle I've seen on the market, but it is still fairly short. It's definitely not an elongated paddle. The width is going to be 8.2 inches, so very wide, fairly short, should make the paddle very maneuverable, very quick. It is a 16 millimeter core, which I think is good. That's very common among the pros to play with a 16 millimeter core. It usually gives you plenty of touch and feel. One of the really interesting things about this paddle that I'm excited to test out is that it's actually super light. It comes in 7.4 to 7.8 ounces, which I believe is Joola's lightest paddle. That's much lighter than I usually play, so it's going to be really interesting to see if this paddle is still able to get enough pop and power with that lightweight. Really excited to go get this one on the court and show you guys how it plays. After drilling and playing with the Joola Radius for over 2 weeks, here's my review of its performance. The first and most important thing that I want to discuss is the power's paddle rating. With the paddle being extremely light, I was expecting it to be pretty weak off of the face, but that actually wasn't the case. I specifically compared it to a Selkirk Vanguard S2 midweight, which has a really similar build, but it's about an ounce heavier than the Radius, and the Radius actually definitely had more pop. I'm still going to categorize it as a control paddle, but it doesn't sacrifice as much offensive ability as you might think. Its lightweight nature combined with the little pop was a big benefit at the net with hands battles and counters. I always felt a step ahead of my opponent and came out on top in hands battles more than I do with the heavier Electra Model E that I typically play with. The paddle also has a higher spin rating than similar CFS and CGS face paddles that Joola has, which is always an asset to improve accuracy and challenge your opponents. Though I felt like I had enough power at the net, I couldn't say the same for my drives and serves. I couldn't put as much power on my opponents as I'd like to from the baseline. The paddle's on the shorter side, and I felt that when I was at the net. It's a wide body paddle and is an inch shorter than elongated paddles. That may not sound like much, but pickleball really is a game of inches, and I definitely noticed the difference. I wasn't able to attack and dink balls out of the air as often as I'd like. If you have a more offensive play style like me, then the wide body shape of this paddle may slow you down a little bit. When it comes to the soft game and controlling the speed of the ball, the Radius excels. The paddle absorbed pace well and made it easy to reset from anywhere on the court, while also making it easier to control the ball when dinking. I never popped the ball up on routine dinks. Dinking and reset came quickly, but it took me a while to adjust to my thirds. I had to give the ball some extra oomph on my drops, and it made me a little bit less consistent than I typically am. I got better at it over time, but it didn't really happen as quickly as I wanted it to. Last thing I'll mention here is the forgiveness of the paddle. It was a forgiving paddle, but it wasn't quite the oversized sweet spot I thought it would give me with the rounded shape. I think the lighter weight made it less stable, which reduced the size of the sweet spot. Nothing to be concerned about, it just wasn't quite as big as you'd think. As for my recommendation, I think this paddle would honestly be a great choice for any player, advanced or beginner, who is looking for a wider, forgiving shape and wants good control and doesn't want anything too heavy. Its excellent control is not without some offensive ability to go with it. I wouldn't call it a power paddle by any means, but for how light the paddle is, I think most people will be satisfied with the power it's able to generate. That's all I got for you today. Really hope it helps.